guys, Kyle the Death Knight of Anime here, bringing you my review for Dragon Ball Super episode 130, the second to last episode, and based on the ending of this episode, the last episode is going to be very interesting, but I'm gonna get into that later because I'm not gonna lie, like aside from the ending, which we'll get into, the entirety of this episode was just pure fucking amazingness, honestly. Okay. So, first off, I need to talk about the animation, and no lie, and I'm probably going on a stretch by saying this, but I think this is the best Dragon Ball, in terms of this episode alone, the art and animation quality, this is the best Dragon Ball Super has ever looked in terms of art and animation quality. I mean, every movement looked fluid, fast-paced, and epic, and I think it's because Toei's realized that, okay, we're basically on our last two episodes, before we pretty much go on a very long hiatus, I would assume. So we need to go all out with a bang, and boy, did they ever! Because both, like I said, both art and animation were on point in this episode. I mean, there are a few minor missteps, but overall, it's like I said, it's probably Super's best looking episode next to the first Goku versus Jiren fight. Yeah, the art and animation quality. I don't know what your thought process was going into this one, Tully, or how you managed to pull it off. But again, props to you. You pulled some amazing shit out of your hat with this episode, and yeah, I know Toei Animation can be a very iffy animation studio for a lot of people, but damn it, when Toei gets it right, they fucking get it right, and for the most part, I'd say 99.9% of the time of this episode, they fucking got it right. Just like, or 99% of the time, actually, I think I would say, but yeah, they got it right for sure. Okay, now, let's talk about the Goku versus Jiren fight, of course, and, okay. Imagine this if you can, guys. I'm sitting back in this chair, watching the episode and thinking, okay, there are some obvious issues plot-wise with the episode, but beside that, why am I enjoying this episode so much? And it wasn't until Jiren went full power that I realized why. This episode, for me, encapsulated all the emotional struggle, just everything that's great about a Dragon Ball fight was basically encapsulated in this one episode. It's just two people with opposing but relatable ideals that you can easily understand going in that are basically going in and fighting each other with pure desire to survive. And honestly, it's something I wish we got more of from pretty much from every one of the other fights in the Tournament of Power. I mean, if I had to pick a close second of people who have had fights like that, I would say it would be Vegeta maybe, but all the other fights have been pretty tame compared to this one. And like I said, it's something I wish we got more of in the other fights from the Tournament of Power overall. But here, it's like this fight was so good because you understand where both Goku and Jiren are coming from. Jiren wants to protect his universe because he wants to prevent the tragedy that happened to his comrades and master from repeating itself, while Goku is fighting to protect those he cares about and the ones he holds dear like he always has. And I guess I'd argue in a way that Jiren's purpose is slightly more impactful because fight is slightly more impactful because of the fact that a good chunk of this fight did focus on just him kind of letting go of his past and struggling to accept his weakness from pretty much back then. Like the entire episode, you can basically see every emotion, every conflicting emotion that every emotion that pretty much Jiren was basically struggling with. Like he was going in to fight Goku, but at the same time he was basically fighting himself almost. So yeah, and although no lie, Jiren attacking. Although no lie, I definitely knew that going into this fight that pretty much Jiren's mind was completely messed up, and just his mind was just completely consumed with self-hatred. But I But Jiren attacking Goku's friends, no lie, that really kind of that really took me by surprise. Like, I mean, I knew the man had basically let himself be consumed by his own self hatred, and he let himself just pretty much. I know he let himself be consumed by his own self hatred and just refused to accept his weakness. But it was I just did not expect him. I did not expect him to go that far, especially in this tournament setting. Although I guess you could argue the whole tournament itself is basically just blown out the window at this point. I mean, yeah, his self hatred was so bad he was willing to attack people who had nothing to do with the fight just to prove a point. And the worst part about him doing that, honestly, is that I don't think he was even aware that the blast could have and possibly would have hurt pretty much could have and possibly would have hurt basically his basically other comrades like and pretty much the other pride troopers. Like the thing, like if it and if that did happen, like it Jiren is so consumed by what had happened that I don't think he would have even cared, honestly, if the other pride troopers were pretty much would have been caught in the blast. I don't know. Like it's one thing that does make me wonder if he would have even cared if they were gone. But yeah, I mean, after calming down, I'm sure he would have. But it's like, yeah, bro, just calm down. All right. Now, like I said, that pretty much ends the majority of the epicness that this episode contained for me. But now I need to talk about just some slight things to talk about here with this episode. Like, okay, so the episode ends with Goku being overwhelmed by pretty much the power of Ultra Instinct, of the Ultra Instinct, of the Super Saiyan Ultra Instinct, Super Saiyan transformation, and which basically immobilizes Goku, leaving Android 17 and Frieza to fight Jiren alone. And okay, like honestly, guys, after this, it's going into heavy spoiler territory. So if you don't want spoilers, just kind of click away now. But okay, you good? Okay, here we go. So I've heard about the synopsis for the next episode, which is basically that apparently Frieza might very well be. It's just a synopsis, so we don't know for sure until the episode airs. But just from the way it sounds, it looks like Frieza is going to be the one who's going to defeat Jiren in the end. And knowing that, my thoughts on this whole setup are very much a double-edged sword. Like, I have very conflicting emotions on this particular setup. Like, okay, let's actually look at the one thing to note. Of course, is that Goku being overwhelmed by the power of Ultra Instinct, and it's one of those things for me where I guess we're supposed to assume the combination of Super Saiyan and Ultra Instinct were basically too much. We're basically too much for him to handle. But I don't know. It's weird because I always thought that the other times I always thought that every other time that we saw Goku using the technique, he was working ever closer to actually mastering the technique. So you would think that after he went Super Saiyan, after he went the Super Saiyan version of the technique, that he would have like a full mastery of the technique. But I don't know. Maybe Super Saiyan overloaded it. I don't know. It's one of those things where I'm not sure how to feel about it because it's just kind of okay. I'm really not sure what to think about that one, to be honest with you. But yeah, it's just weird because I always thought that Goku at this point had full mastery of the technique, but yeah, I don't know. Now, the Android 17 and Frieza setup. Like I said, I've seen the spoilers. I told you guys what the spoilers are, so I know how this ends. And on one hand, I am actually extremely happy that in the end it won't be Goku who's going to be delivering the finishing blow, possibly, or at least from what I've heard, that is definitely a heavy possibility. But on the other hand, it's fucking Jiren, and okay, he's severely wounded and weakened and beaten up from this fight, but even that, I, s- I don't like Frieza's chances, and I'm severely questioning how is Toei going to handle this in a way that we as the viewer can accept. Because honestly, it's like the it's one of those things where I'm not sure. It's one of those things where where I think there are so many there are so many ways in there are so many ways I think in which Toei can completely fuck this up, and yet at the same time I don't want to make any rash assumptions until the actual episode comes out. So, but it's at this point it's I guess you could say my thoughts right now on the Frieza versus Jiren fight is that it's basically my thoughts on pretty much on the Tokyo Ghoul on the season 3 of Tokyo Ghoul anime. I'm keeping the studio at an extremely arm's length, an extreme arm's length until pretty much the episode itself drops. So yeah, Toei. I don't know if you're ever gonna come across this video, but just know you're basically on my watch list after this. So yeah. Now, aside from that, let's basically talk a little bit about pretty much about the possibilities of how the last episode is going to go, because I've heard things about the last episode and that we're getting a very special announcement after the end credits. But so in a way that does kind of ease my fears a bit, just pretty much knowing that episode 31 in the movie might not be the absolute end of Dragon Ball Super, but at the same time, that montage of moments from the previous shows did give me a little bit of the epilogue vibe. So I guess again, it's one of those things where we're just gonna have to wait and see how the final episode plays out. The title itself still has me worried though. Like this pretty much could just as easily, like, I don't want to build up this whole special announcement that's going up, but it's like it's for me it's a thing where we pretty much still have where the final, if not handled correctly, the final episode like the thing about Dragon Ball Super is that it's supposedly it's fan service, of course, for the fans, but at the same time, it's like there's in terms of Dragon Ball Super continuity, we all know that it's supposed to take place between the Buu Saga and the Epilogue tournament. So, are they just gonna cram all that shit in? Are they just gonna cram like all are just gonna cram like basically how they're gonna fit? Are they gonna fit the two into that one episode, or are they just gonna leave us on a cliffhanger for another anime or another season? Or I don't know. I'm just the final episode just holds so many questions that I don't know whether or not we're gonna get an answer to, but I guess we're just gonna have to wait and see. But but yeah, guys, that's my review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe, follow me on Twitter and Facebook. Death Night of Anime, signing off. Later, guys.